It was late when I got home, the kind of quiet that feels thick, like the walls themselves are holding their breath. I dropped my suitcase by the door and kicked off my shoes, the familiar ache in my feet a reminder of another long trip. But even through the exhaustion, I felt that small spark of relief. Home. The lights were low, the air still, and Liam's jacket hung right where he always left it. I smiled without thinking. Everything was just as I'd left it, or so I thought. I crept into the bedroom, trying not to make a sound. He was already in bed, turned away, the steady rise and fall of his back the only thing moving. I slipped under the covers and let my head fall onto the pillow, sinking into the comfort I'd been craving for days. But something pulled me back. A scent. Light, sweet, and floral. Not mine. I blinked into the darkness, confused for a second, trying to place it. It wasn't my shampoo. Not my lotion. For a moment, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the hotel detergent had rubbed off on my clothes. Maybe Liam had bought a new fabric softener. I even laughed under my breath, trying to shake off the thought. But the more I lay there, breathing it in, the more certain I became. That wasn't my scent. And Liam didn't wear perfume. My chest tightened. I didn't say a word. I just stayed there, still, eyes open in the dark. Something had changed. And I knew it. The next morning, I didn't mention it. I poured our coffee like I always did, kissed him goodbye at the door, and waved as if everything was fine. But inside, something had shifted. That scent. It lingered in my mind like a song you can't unhear. I kept playing it back, trying to trace its origin, as if my memory could suddenly crack the code. I didn't want to be the suspicious wife, but I also wasn't naive. That night, I changed the sheets, told him it was just time. I sprayed my own perfume onto the pillows, thinking maybe I could drown it out, mask it. But as I lay there, nose against the cotton, it was still there. Fainter, maybe, but unmistakable, like someone had pressed themselves into the fabric and left a piece of their presence behind. It clung to me, even in my dreams. I started noticing other things, little things. His sudden urgency to shower before I got home. His new cologne, which he said he got as a gift from a client. The way he looked at his phone and smiled when he thought I wasn't watching. But I didn't say a word. I watched. I noted. I let the silence stretch between us like a thread I wasn't ready to snap. Something told me I had to wait. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed to be sure. It's strange how fast your instincts kick in when your heart's on the line. I started tuning into everything. The way his voice shifted when he answered unknown calls, how often he worked late, how his kisses became mechanical, like habits instead of feelings. None of it screamed guilt. It whispered it. And those whispers were louder than anything he could have said. I didn't ask. I didn't accuse. Instead, I paid attention. There's a quiet power in that. Watching someone dig their own grave while thinking you're still in the dark. I smiled at his stories, nodded at his excuses. But inside, I was building something. Piece by piece, breath by breath. I knew if I rushed, I'd only get fragments. And I didn't want fragments. I wanted the whole truth. Every night I went to bed and breathed in that same scent. It became a ritual, almost. My own way of staying connected to the mystery. That perfume wasn't just someone else's fragrance anymore. It was a message. A warning. A betrayal soaked into the fibers of my pillow. And without saying a word, I decided I would follow it, wherever it led. I wasn't just guessing anymore. I was hunting. Quietly. Carefully. I started with the smart camera system Liam had installed himself. I knew the app. Knew his passwords. He always thought I was forgetful with tech stuff. Turns out, playing dumb has its advantages. I waited until he left for the gym one night, then pulled up the footage. My fingers trembled, but I kept going. At first, nothing. Days of him walking in and out, doing laundry, eating leftovers. But then, a frame that made my stomach knot, a glimpse of a shadow near the hallway, just out of frame. Too soft to be a glitch, too human to ignore. That was enough to start. I ordered a tiny voice recorder online, the kind that looks like a charger, slipped it behind the nightstand, set it to trigger on sound, and then I waited. He kissed me goodnight that evening like always. Same rhythm, same tired smile. And still, that perfume. I closed my eyes and let him sleep while I stared into the dark, heart pounding with the weight of secrets I hadn't heard yet. I wasn't scared, I was focused. It's funny how betrayal doesn't break you. It sharpens you. I knew I had crossed a line, but so had he, and I wasn't going to unsee what I already knew. Over the next few days, I started collecting things. Things most people wouldn't notice. A wine glass out of place. A lipstick smear on the rim that wasn't mine. A pair of earrings I'd never seen before, tucked beneath the edge of the bed like they'd rolled there in a hurry. I took pictures of everything, labeled folders, dates, times. It felt surreal, like I was documenting someone else's life. But it was mine, my marriage, my home. I paid attention to his grooming habits too. The sudden shaving at 6 p.m., the cologne he never wore before unless it was date night, the way he'd glance at himself in the mirror just a little too long. And the gym visits? Always around the same time. Always when I was working late. I started tracking it all, mapping out his routines like puzzle pieces. And every time I started to doubt myself, that perfume on my pillow reminded me not to. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage. Every mug, every drawer, every shadow held questions. I'd walk through the rooms and wonder, where had she been? What had they done? How close had they come to getting caught? I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just observed. Because sometimes silence is louder than confrontation. And mine was starting to echo back at me. At night, after Liam drifted off, I'd lie awake with my phone in hand, earbuds in, listening to the recorder's files. Most nights were quiet, the hum of the air conditioner, the creak of the bed frame. But sometimes, soft laughter, a second voice, the sound of zippers and whispers too intimate to mistake. My stomach would twist, but I kept listening. I needed to hear it. I needed to know how far they'd gone, and how deeply he'd lied. I wasn't just piecing together an affair. I was studying their choreography, the way he moved, how long she stayed, the patterns in their deception. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, and that changed everything. It meant this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, one he kept making. And that lit a fire in me I hadn't felt in years, a kind of clarity, cold and sharp. Every day I'd come home and check the footage, review the audio, take mental notes on what was out of place. But no matter what I found, that pillow told the same story. That scent, hers, had settled into the fibers, stubborn and smug. And now, it wasn't just a sign. It was a countdown. I didn't know exactly when it would happen, but I felt it coming. The moment. The break. The undeniable truth. The clip was only 16 seconds long, but it took me an hour to press play. It had been sitting there in the cloud, time-stamped and undeniable. Tuesday, 2:03 p.m. I recognized the angle, hallway camera. I'd seen that door swing open 100 times, but this time he wasn't alone. She walked in behind him, laughing. No hesitation, no panic, just comfort. Like she'd been there before, like it was hers too. I felt everything drain from me, the blood in my face, the heat in my chest, the hope I hadn't realized I was still clinging to. And then, worse, recognition. The woman with the soft curls and perfect lipstick. I knew her. God, I knew her. Liam had mentioned her dozens of times. Work events, team dinners. Just a friend, he'd said. She's married, he'd shrugged. I stared at her frozen face on the screen, my pulse pounding. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, gripping the phone, realizing that every lie he'd told had been neatly packaged in politeness and casual tones. She was the one. The scent. The voice. The shadow in the hallway. And now, I had proof. My hands shook, but my mind was still. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to plan, and he would never see it coming. I called a lawyer the very next morning, calm, composed, no tremble in my voice. I laid it all out, recordings, footage, timestamps, screenshots. She listened in silence, occasionally scribbling something down, occasionally glancing up at me like she couldn't quite believe how steady I was. But I wasn't numb. I was prepared. Pain makes you soft at first. Then it makes you sharp. I wasn't there to vent. I was building an exit. Carefully, methodically. We talked about everything. The house, the accounts, the legal grounds. She asked if I wanted to confront him right away. I said no, not yet. Because I had one more thing to do. Something that wasn't about revenge, but revelation. I wanted him to see himself the way I now saw him, exposed, stripped of excuses. I didn't want yelling. I wanted silence so loud it would crush him, and I had the perfect stage for it. I told him we should throw a dinner party, celebrate his recent promotion. He lit up, completely unaware. Started calling friends, sending invites, planning wine pairings. It was almost impressive how easily he smiled in my face. He had no idea what I knew. No clue that every time he touched me, every time he laughed, I was memorizing the way a liar moves. That party wasn't just a distraction. It was going to be my stage. The week leading up to the dinner felt like a performance. I played my part flawlessly. Supportive wife, smiling hostess-to-be, gently teasing him about wine choices and guest lists. Inside, I was rehearsing something else entirely. I trimmed the footage, cleaned the audio, built the sequence. It wasn't a smear campaign. It was a mirror. And when I held it up, I wanted every person in that room to see what I had seen. At night, he curled beside me in bed like nothing had changed. But I knew better. I had learned to hear the difference between truth and comfort. His breathing was shallow. His hand would twitch when his phone buzzed. He didn't suspect a thing, but some part of him was restless. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear he hadn't named yet. I'd lie awake, counting the days, each heartbeat a drum roll building toward the finale. I didn't feel hate, not even anger. What I felt was something colder, cleaner. Resolve. This wasn't about making him hurt. It was about making him face the weight of what he'd done, stripped of charm and excuses. And deep down, I think I wanted him to remember the moment forever. Not the party, not the friends, but the look on my face when everything he'd hidden came to light. The night of the party, the house looked beautiful. Candles flickered in the dining room, soft jazz played in the background, and the smell of rosemary chicken drifted through the air. I wore a navy blue dress he once said made me look effortlessly elegant. He stood by the kitchen, pouring wine, laughing with friends, so at ease, so sure of the world he thought he'd mastered. I smiled, touched his arm, played the perfect hostess. Our friends arrived one by one, handing over wine bottles and complimenting the setup. Liam basked in the praise, playing the charming host to perfection. I moved through the crowd like a dancer, offering appetizers, asking about their kids, their vacations. No one noticed how still I was beneath the smile. No one could see the steel I'd built inside, but I felt it. Every step, every laugh, was a step closer to the edge. When dinner was served, the table glowed with golden light. Glasses clinked, stories flowed, and Liam raised a toast, thanking everyone for being part of his success. He looked at me, winked. And I lifted my glass in return, heart steady. They thought this night was about him. But soon they'd understand. This wasn't a celebration. It was a revelation. And I was finally ready to speak. After dessert, the energy shifted. That full, satisfied silence when conversation naturally slows. I stood up slowly, glass in hand, and smiled at the guests like I was about to tell a charming anecdote. Liam grinned at me, completely unaware, his hand resting lightly on the back of my chair. I tapped the side of my glass with a spoon, just once. Clear, sharp. Attention turned. I took a breath. I wanted to share something personal with you all, I said, my voice calm but deliberate. A short story. About love, about trust, and about perfume. The room chuckled lightly, confused, curious. Liam gave a small laugh, too, like I was about to roast him with some old vacation tale. I walked over to the TV. My finger hovered on the remote. It won't take long, I added, and pressed play. First came the hallway footage, her walking in, his arm around her, then the slow fade into audio, whispers, soft laughter, her voice saying his name. You could feel the silence drop like a curtain. No one looked at the screen. They looked at him, and he just froze, eyes wide, jaw stiff, like he couldn't decide if it was a dream or a nightmare. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. The final clip played, her walking out of our bedroom, fixing her hair, wearing that same perfume I'd come to hate. And then it faded to black. No dramatic music, no flashing words. Just silence. Real, thick, breathless silence. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. One woman covered her mouth. Liam's face had drained of all color. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. But I was more alive than I'd ever been. I turned to him, holding his gaze. You gave my pillow to someone else, I said, voice low, steady, and clear enough for everyone to hear. I'm reclaiming the whole damn bed. He didn't speak. Couldn't. The woman, his so-called friend, excused herself in a whisper, practically running to the door. Chairs scraped. Eyes darted. But I stood tall, unmoved. There was nothing left to explain. I didn't need applause or outrage, just truth, laid bare, in the open, in front of everyone who once saw us as perfect. Let them see. Let them know. I walked back to my seat, calm as ever, picked up my glass, and took a sip. The taste wasn't sweet. It was powerful. And as the night unraveled around him, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet, rising certainty that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The morning after the dinner, I didn't feel broken. I felt clean. I made coffee in silence, watching the steam rise like breath from something freshly exhaled. Liam didn't come home that night, or maybe he did, but I didn't care enough to notice. I'd already moved forward in my mind. I sat at the kitchen table, my lawyer's number glowing on my phone screen, and pressed call without hesitation. It was time. Filing was swift, effortless almost. I handed her the folder I'd curated for weeks. Video clips, photos, logs, dates, audio files. She nodded, impressed. Legally, it was airtight. Emotionally, it was liberating. I wasn't bargaining for love anymore. I was claiming peace. My peace. And as word spread, through his job, our mutual friends, the truth did what it always does. It echoed, loudly. Liam's reputation took a hit almost immediately. Whispers started at work. The mistress transferred departments within days. People looked at him differently now, not with envy or admiration, but with caution. As for me, I went home and stood in my bedroom. I stripped the sheets, every last corner of them, like I was peeling off skin that didn't belong to me. It was more than cleaning. It was an exorcism. I boxed up his things in silence, the ties, the cufflinks, the shirts I used to fold with love. Now, they were just fabric, just remnants of a man who had mistaken comfort for loyalty and silence for ignorance. Each drawer I emptied felt like unclenching a fist. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was done carrying what wasn't mine to hold. And God, it felt good to finally let go. I walked through the house like I was meeting it for the first time, rearranged furniture, took down the wedding photos, painted over the wall where we'd marked our anniversary with a framed quote about forever. That word didn't mean what it used to. I bought new linens, crisp, white, untouched, and I chose a new scent, something warm, earthy, and rich. Mine. Entirely mine. I sprayed it in every room like a declaration. The house started to breathe differently. So did I. I found a playlist I hadn't heard in years and played it loud while I redecorated. Not out of defiance, out of celebration. I wasn't erasing my past. I was reclaiming my space. Piece by piece, breath by breath, I was filling it with me again. Not the version of me that waited. The one who knew. The one who acted. The one who finally came home to herself. A few weeks later, I found myself in a quiet perfume shop tucked between a bookstore and a cafe. The kind of place you only notice when you're ready to. Rows of elegant bottles lined the shelves, each holding a story, a mood, a new beginning. The shopkeeper asked what I was looking for, and I smiled. "Something that smells like freedom," I said. She didn't blink, just nodded and handed me a tester. I sprayed it on my wrist, warm notes of amber, a hint of spice, something grounding. I closed my eyes and breathed in. It didn't remind me of anyone else. It didn't chase memories. It was mine. Completely mine. I bought the bottle without hesitation. As I stepped outside, the sun caught my face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Not just surviving. Alive. And as I walked down the street, shoulders back, chin high, I heard my own voice in my head. Calm, steady, certain. He thought I wouldn't notice the scent. He didn't know it would lead to his downfall. And with that thought, I kept walking. Not away from something, but toward everything that was finally mine.
Need to see you in the conference room. The text from Derek Wilkins appeared on my phone without any context or greeting. My stomach tightened as I read it, though I couldn't pinpoint why. After 17 years at Haven Mart's flagship store in Sacramento, I'd received countless meeting requests, but something about this one felt different. My name is Lisa Romero, and at 51, I had become something of a fixture at Store 137. I started as a floor associate when my daughter was in elementary school, gradually working my way up to senior operations lead. I trained half the current staff, restructured our inventory systems to reduce shrinkage by 18%, and helped our location consistently rank in the top 5 for the Western region. I locked my office and walked toward the conference room, nodding at Jaime in electronics, who was helping an elderly customer choose a tablet. He gave me a thumbs up. We'd implemented a new training protocol last month that had boosted his department's customer satisfaction scores. The conference room door was closed, which was unusual for our open-door culture. When I entered, Derek was standing near the window, his arms crossed. Beside him sat Patricia from Human Resources, her expression carefully neutral. A folder lay on the table between them. "Take a seat, Lisa," Derek said without looking at me. At 36, he'd been our general manager for just under 2 years, brought in as part of the company's Fresh Perspective initiative. I sat down, folding my hands in my lap. "Is everything okay?" Derek finally turned toward me, his face a mask of corporate detachment. "After reviewing our organizational structure, we've determined that your position is no longer aligned with our business needs." Patricia slid the folder toward me. Your salary is too high for your contribution. We're letting you go. I blinked, trying to process the words. I don't understand. My last performance review was exemplary. The decision has been made, Derek said flatly. Your email access has already been revoked. Patricia will walk you through the exit paperwork. The conference room suddenly felt too small, too warm. 17 years of dedication, of coming in early and staying late, of missing family dinners to handle inventory crises, reduced to a dismissive conversation that lasted less than 5 minutes. Yet, as I looked at Derek's face, not quite meeting my eyes, his fingers tapping nervously against his arm, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. There was something he didn't know, something that transformed this moment from tragedy to irony. I simply smiled, signed the exit form Patricia pushed toward me, and said, "Thank you for the experience." Then I walked out, leaving Derek visibly relieved that I hadn't caused a scene. He had no idea what Monday would bring. 2 weeks earlier, I had received an email from Vanessa Torres, the Vice President of Regional Operations. "We'd like to discuss your future with Haven Mart," it read. I assumed it was about the inventory management system I'd developed, which had been implemented in several stores across the state. When I arrived at the corporate headquarters in San Francisco, I was surprised to find not just Vanessa, but also Jeremy Phillips, the Chief Operations Officer, waiting for me. "Lisa," Vanessa began, "we've been watching your work for some time. The efficiency initiatives you've spearheaded at store number 137 have caught our attention." Jeremy nodded. "Particularly impressive is how you've managed to train and retain staff in an industry known for high turnover. Your location has the lowest attrition rate in the entire Western Division. I'd never thought of my work as particularly remarkable. I simply did what seemed logical: treat people with respect, identify inefficiencies, and implement practical solutions. We're restructuring our regional leadership," Vanessa continued, "and we need someone who understands both the operational and human elements of our business. Someone who can transform our other locations the way you've helped transform store number 137. We'd like to offer you the position of regional director," Jeremy said, sliding a folder across the table. "You would oversee all 15 locations in Northern California, including Sacramento." I opened the folder, scanning the job description and the salary figure, nearly double what I was currently making. My hand trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages. "This would mean supervising all current general managers in the region," Vanessa added, "including Derek Wilkins." I looked up, meeting her eyes. There was a knowing look there, an unspoken acknowledgement. Derek's reputation for taking credit for others' work and pushing out experienced staff had not gone unnoticed. "We've seen how he operates," Jeremy said quietly. "And we've seen how you operate. The contrast is illuminating." I thought about my team at store number 137, how we'd weathered inventory crises, holiday rushes, and the chaos of the pandemic together. I thought about the young associates I'd mentored who now held management positions throughout the company. "When would you need an answer?" I asked. "Take the weekend," Vanessa replied. "But we'd like you to start as soon as possible. The regional office is here in San Francisco, but you'd be traveling to all locations regularly." I drove back to Sacramento that evening, the offer letter tucked safely in my bag, a mixture of pride and vindication warming my chest. After 17 years of quietly driving results while others took the spotlight, my work had finally been recognized by the people who mattered. I called my daughter that night and told her about the offer. "Take it, Mom," she said immediately. "It's about time." The following Monday, I accepted the regional director position, asking for a 2-week transition period to wrap up projects at store Burger 137. Vanessa agreed, emphasizing the confidential nature of the appointment until the official announcement. "We'll announce it company-wide next Friday," she said. "Until then, proceed as normal." So I did. I continued my daily routines, meeting with department heads, addressing inventory discrepancies, and mentoring newer team members. I even helped Derek prepare for his quarterly presentation to the board, staying late to ensure his numbers were accurate and his proposals solid. During this time, I noticed Derek watching me with increasing suspicion. Twice, I caught him reviewing printouts of my email correspondence with vendors. Once, he questioned Julia from accounts about purchase orders I'd approved. "He's looking for something to use against you," Julia whispered during our lunch break. "He's been asking about expense reports, overtime approvals, anything he could flag as problematic." I wasn't surprised. Derek had systematically removed most of the senior staff who had been at store number 137 before his arrival. Thomas from warehouse operations was reorganized out after 22 years. Catherine from customer service was placed on a performance improvement plan so demanding that she resigned after 3 decades with the company. I was the last of the old guard, and my salary, increased through years of modest raises and promotions, was undoubtedly a tempting target for someone looking to cut costs and demonstrate bold leadership to corporate. What Derek didn't realize was that corporate was watching him, not me. On Wednesday, I received an embossed envelope containing my official offer letter, benefits package, and a welcome note signed by the executive team. I would start the following Monday. That same day, I noticed Derek in a lengthy closed-door meeting with Patricia from Human Resources. They emerged looking grim, but determined. By Thursday morning, the conference room had been reserved for a personnel discussion at 2 p.m., the same time Derek texted me to meet him there. As I cleaned out my desk after the termination meeting, I felt an odd sense of peace. For years, I had poured my heart into this store, into the people who worked here. I had missed dance recitals, declined vacations, and worked holidays to ensure everything ran smoothly. And while being dismissed so callously stung, I knew that my journey with Haven Mart wasn't ending. It was expanding. I handed my keys to Patricia, who couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Is there anything you'd like to say for the record?" she asked, her voice professional but strained. I thought about telling her then, about the offer letter sitting in my car, about the corporate apartment in San Francisco I had just signed a lease for, about how on Monday I would step into a role that would make Derek answerable to me. But instead, I simply smiled. "No," I said. "I think everything will become clear very soon." I walked out of store number 137 not as a terminated employee, but as its future regional director. Derek just didn't know it yet. Friday morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, I didn't have to rush to Haven Mart to handle the early shipments or prepare for weekend crowds. I savored a second cup of coffee on my porch, watching the Sacramento sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. My phone buzzed with messages from coworkers who'd heard about my termination. "This is Bull," texted Jaime from electronics. "The store won't function without you." "Derek's making a huge mistake," wrote Bethany from customer service. "We're all in shock." I responded with gratitude but offered no details about what was coming. The official announcement would go out that afternoon, and I didn't want to undermine corporate's communication plan. At noon, my daughter Gabriella called. "Mom, I can't believe they fired you, after everything you've done for that place." "It's okay, sweetheart," I assured her. "Everything happens for a reason." "Well, I hope that reason involves Derek getting what he deserves," she said fiercely. "Remember when he didn't approve your time off for my graduate school ceremony? Or when he took credit for your inventory system at the regional meeting?" I did remember, but those slights seemed small now, knowing what was coming. "Let's not focus on the negative," I said. "How about we celebrate this weekend? I start a new job on Monday." "Already? That's fantastic. Where?" "Still with Haven Mart, actually, but in a different capacity." Before I could elaborate, my phone beeped with an incoming call from Vanessa Torres. I promised Gabriella details later and switched over. "Lisa," Vanessa said, her voice warm but serious. We just issued the company-wide announcement about your appointment. I wanted to give you a heads up that it's causing quite a stir at store number 137. I felt a flutter of anticipation. I imagine it would. Derek Wilkins called our office almost immediately, claiming there must be some mistake. When our executive assistant confirmed the appointment, let's just say he wasn't pleased. I could picture Derek's face, the gradual transformation from confusion to disbelief to horrified realization. The same man who had dismissed me so coldly just yesterday was now learning that I would be his direct supervisor starting Monday. "Is there anything I need to do?" I asked. "Not at all. We've instructed him to prepare a complete store overview for your arrival on Monday morning. All other general managers in the region have also been notified and are scheduling welcome meetings with you." After hanging up, I checked my personal email. Sure enough, there was a message from corporate communications with the subject line: Leadership Announcement. Lisa Romero appointed Regional Director, Northern California. Attached was the official release that had gone out to all employees. Haven Mart is pleased to announce the appointment of Lisa Romero as Regional Director for Northern California, effective Monday. Lisa brings 17 years of exemplary service and operational expertise to this role, having most recently served as Senior Operations Lead at our flagship Sacramento location. In her new position, Lisa will oversee all 15 stores in the Northern California region, working directly with general managers to implement best practices and drive performance excellence. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from current and former colleagues. Most were congratulatory, but a few contained snippets of information about the chaos unfolding at store number 137. Derek locked himself in his office after the announcement, Julia wrote. Patricia from HR is outside looking panic-stricken. Another text from Jaime simply read, "Justice." I put my phone aside and began packing for my weekend trip to San Francisco. I had an apartment to furnish and a new wardrobe to purchase before Monday. Despite 17 years of dedicated service, I had never owned a tailored blazer or proper business attire. My work had always been hands-on, practical, often physical. That was about to change. Saturday morning, I drove to San Francisco. The corporate apartment was small but modern, located in a high-rise downtown with a view of the bay. I spent the day purchasing essentials: professional clothing, office supplies, kitchenware for the sparse apartment. At a boutique in Union Square, a stylish saleswoman named Carolyn helped me select a wardrobe befitting my new position. Regional Director, she repeated when I told her my title. That calls for something powerful but approachable. She assembled a collection of tailored blazers, sleek dresses, and classic separates in rich, saturated colors. As I tried on a deep burgundy blazer, Carolyn adjusted the shoulders and nodded approvingly. "This is perfect. You look like someone who makes decisions that matter." I studied my reflection, barely recognizing the confident executive staring back at me. For years, my uniform had been khaki pants and a Haven Mart polo, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, minimal makeup that would survive 12-hour shifts. "I'll take it," I said, "and the navy and charcoal ones as well." By evening, I had transformed both the apartment and myself. I sat at the small dining table, reviewing the regional performance reports Vanessa had sent over. Store number 137, my former home, was profitable but showing concerning trends: increasing employee turnover, declining customer satisfaction scores, and shrinkage numbers that had begun to creep up after years of steady decline. These were clear indicators of Derek's leadership style: pressure without support, expectations without resources, demands without recognition. My phone rang, a Sacramento number I didn't recognize. "Lisa Romero," I answered. "Lisa, it's Patricia Jenkins from Human Resources at Store 137. Her voice was strained, professional composure barely masking panic. "Hello, Patricia. What can I do for you?" I kept my tone neutral, remembering her sitting silently beside Derek as he terminated my employment. I wanted to apologize for Thursday's meeting. I had no idea about your promotion. None of us did. I understand. You were doing your job. Yes, but... She paused. If I had known that I was about to become regional director, would that have changed how the termination was handled? The question wasn't accusatory, merely pragmatic. Her silence was answer enough. Monday will be a fresh start, I said finally. I'm looking forward to working with you in my new capacity. Of course, she replied quickly. Derek has called an emergency leadership meeting for Sunday to prepare for your arrival. He's quite concerned about making a good impression. I smiled to myself, imagining Derek frantically attempting to rewrite the narrative of our professional relationship, coaching the team on what to say and what to hide. There's no need for special preparation, I assured her. I know store number 137 better than anyone. My goal isn't to catch people off guard, but to help every location succeed. After hanging up, I received a text from another unknown number. This is Derek Wilkins. Can we meet before Monday to discuss the transition? I considered my response carefully. Part of me wanted to ignore the message, to let him stew in anxiety until our official meeting. But that wasn't the leader I intended to be. Good evening, Derek, I typed. All general managers will have one-on-one meetings with me during my first week. I've reserved Monday 9 a.m. for store number 137, as noted in the calendar invitation from regional operations. Please prepare the quarterly performance overview, staffing assessments, and loss prevention reports. See you then. Professional. Clear. Direct. No trace of resentment or triumph, despite the sweet vindication coursing through me. I put my phone away and returned to the reports. Success would be my revenge. Not just personal success, but creating an environment where every employee had the opportunity to thrive, something Derek had systematically dismantled during his tenure. Monday would be about more than just seeing Derek's face when I walked in as his new boss. It would be about beginning the process of rebuilding what he had broken. Sunday evening, I received a call from Vanessa. How are you feeling about tomorrow? She asked. Prepared, I answered honestly. I've reviewed all the regional data and identified key areas for improvement at each location. That's why we hired you, she said with approval. But I'm more curious about how you're feeling about store number 137 specifically, about facing Derek. I considered the question. Throughout the weekend, colleagues had been feeding me information about the frantic atmosphere at the store. Derek calling in team leads for emergency meetings, ordering a deep clean of the facility, even attempting to retroactively document decisions that had led to my termination. I'm not approaching tomorrow as personal, I said finally. Derek made business decisions he thought were in his best interest. Now I'll make business decisions in the best interest of Haven Mart and its employees. Professionally answered, Vanessa noted. But off the record? It must feel pretty satisfying. I allowed myself a small smile. I won't deny there's a certain poetic justice to the situation. After we hung up, I laid out my outfit for the morning. The burgundy blazer, a cream silk blouse, tailored black pants, and leather heels that added 2 inches to my height. Professional armor for a pivotal day. My phone buzzed with a text from Gabriella. Knock 'em dead tomorrow, Mom. So proud of you. I slept soundly that night, more at peace than I had been in years. Monday morning arrived with fog hanging over San Francisco Bay. I dressed carefully, applied subtle makeup, and styled my hair in a sleek bob rather than my usual practical ponytail. The woman in the mirror looked confident, authoritative, ready to lead. The drive to Sacramento took longer than expected due to traffic, but I still arrived at store number 137 10 minutes before our scheduled meeting. I parked in the visitor section rather than my old spot, gathering my leather portfolio and taking a deep breath before exiting the car. As I walked toward the entrance, I noticed several employees watching through the windows, some whispering to each other, others outright staring. Word of my arrival had clearly spread. Jaime was stationed by the door, his eyes widening as he took in my transformation. "Wow, Ms. Romero. You look amazing." "Thank you, Jaime. How are things inside?" He grinned. Tense. Derek's been in the conference room for an hour already. Patricia's stress-eating donuts in the break room. I nodded, maintaining my professional composure despite the amusement bubbling inside me. "I'll head straight there, then." The store looked different somehow. Not physically changed, but altered by my new perspective. For 17 years, this had been my world, my responsibility. Now it was just one of 15 locations under my supervision. As I walked through the main floor, employees stopped what they were doing to watch. Some nodded respectfully. Others gave subtle thumbs-up signs or knowing smiles. I acknowledged them with professional nods, maintaining the dignified demeanor my position required. When I reached the conference room, I paused outside the door, gathering myself for what was to come. Through the glass panel, I could see Derek sitting alone at the table, surrounded by binders and spreadsheets, checking his watch nervously. I knocked once and entered without waiting for a response. "Good morning, Derek," I said, my voice steady and authoritative. He stood abruptly, his face draining of color as he took in my appearance, no longer his subordinate in a company polo, but his superior in executive attire. "Lisa," he stammered. "Thank you for coming." "That's Regional Director Romero," I corrected gently, extending my hand. "Shall we begin?" The meeting began with Derek attempting to control the narrative. He had prepared an elaborate presentation highlighting store achievements, many of which were initiatives I had personally developed before my termination. "Under my leadership," he began, clicking through a slide showing improved inventory metrics, "Store number 137 has implemented revolutionary tracking systems that have reduced shrinkage by 18%. I allowed him to continue, noting how he carefully avoided mentioning my contributions. When he finished the overview, I opened my portfolio and removed a single sheet of paper. "Thank you for that presentation," I said evenly. "Now, I'd like to discuss the termination of a senior operations lead with 17 years of experience, executed without corporate approval or proper documentation." Derek's confident facade cracked. "I can explain." "I'm sure you can," I interrupted, still calm. "But first, I'd like you to explain these numbers." I pushed a report across the table. Turnover rates at store number 137 under his management, showing a dramatic increase in departures among experienced staff. "We've been restructuring," he said weakly. "Restructuring typically doesn't result in losing your most knowledgeable employees right before holiday season." I removed another document. "Or in customer satisfaction scores dropping 15 points in 18 months. Derek's eyes darted to the door as if considering escape. "Let me be direct," I continued. "Haven Mart values leadership that builds rather than dismantles, that nurtures talent rather than discarding it when it becomes inconvenient or threatens one's authority." I closed my portfolio. "You have two choices, Derek. You can submit your resignation, effective immediately, with standard severance, or you can commit to a comprehensive performance improvement plan under my direct supervision, with weekly evaluations and clear benchmarks for progress." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I was offering him the same ultimatum often used to push out experienced employees. Derek swallowed hard. "I'd like to explore the improvement plan option." I nodded, revealing nothing of the satisfaction I felt. "Then we have a lot of work to do. Let's begin with how you plan to rebuild the team you've systematically dismantled." Over the next month, I divided my time between all 15 Northern California locations, but paid special attention to store number 137. Derek, now under intense scrutiny, struggled to adapt to a leadership style that valued transparency and collaboration over authority and control. During our weekly one-on-one meetings, I addressed every aspect of his management approach. "Your team doesn't trust you," I told him candidly. Trust is earned through consistency, honesty, and genuine support, not fear. Derek nodded stiffly, unable to meet my eyes. I understand. Do you? Because understanding requires empathy, Derek. It means recognizing that every associate, regardless of their position, contributes value to this organization. I implemented changes that directly countered his previous approaches. We rehired Thomas from warehouse operations, bringing back his 22 years of expertise. Catherine from customer service returned as a trainer for new associates. Most importantly, I established anonymous feedback channels so staff could report concerns without fear of retaliation. Throughout this process, I maintained absolute professionalism. I never mentioned our previous history, never alluded to his role in my termination, never allowed personal satisfaction to influence business decisions. By the 6th week, Derek requested another private meeting. "I'd like to tender my resignation," he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. "I've been offered a position with another company." I accepted the envelope without opening it. "I wish you success in your new role." "That's it?" he asked, seeming almost disappointed by my measured response. "Did you expect something more dramatic?" I asked, allowing myself the smallest smile. He shook his head, a flush creeping up his neck. "No, thank you for the opportunity to improve, even if I didn't ultimately succeed." Growth isn't linear, Derek. Perhaps this experience will inform your approach to leadership in the future. As he left my office, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt no triumph, only the quiet satisfaction of a system rebalancing itself. The next day, I recommended Jaime from electronics for the interim general manager position. His empathetic leadership style and operational knowledge made him the perfect candidate to heal the fractured culture Derek had created. "Are you sure I'm ready?" Jaime asked when I presented the opportunity. "I've been watching you for years," I told him. "You lead by example, listen before deciding, and put people before profits while still delivering results. That's exactly what store number 137 needs right now." 2 months into my role as regional director, all 15 Northern California locations showed improvements in key metrics. But the most satisfying transformation was at store number 137, where employee morale had rebounded dramatically, taking customer satisfaction scores along with it. I never needed Derek to admit he was wrong. The results spoke for themselves. As I sat in my office overlooking San Francisco Bay, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. 17 years of dedication, 1 afternoon of dismissal, and now a position where I could ensure others wouldn't face the same treatment. The best revenge wasn't seeing Derek's face when I walked in as his boss. It was creating an environment where talent was nurtured, experience was valued, and leadership meant service rather than power. That was a victory worth savoring,